live to Parliament to cover George Osborne's last
Earlier, I spoke
budget.
to Winchester's MP, Steve Bryan, to get his thoughts on the budget.
There is a mixed reaction from Britain's financial sector.
And here at Canary Wharf, we're getting people's reactions to the Chancellor's budget.
Winchester Cathedral undergoes some TLC of gigantic proportions. And Winchester Knights are crowned Kings of the Court.
Oh, it's the best thing that's happened to us. It's the best day of my university life. Seriously, this means everything to me.
Hello and welcome to Winchester News Online's Budget Special, bringing you the latest news from Westminster to Winchester. I'm Sophie Hannam. It's the biggest day in the political calendar, made all the more important this year because of the looming general election. George Osborne delivered his speech earlier this afternoon, and Laura Harding is in Westminster and joins me now. Laura, what's the latest?
The budget was eagerly anticipated all day, and then the announcement was met by very mixed reviews. All the parties had their different opinions on how successful the budget was and how successful it will be. This morning I spoke to Mike Thornton to get his reaction.
Obviously we need to cut out waste. It's absolutely vital we cut out waste, and every government tries to do that, but it's just unrealistic to say it can all be done by cutting.
This afternoon, following the announcement, I spoke to Winchester MP Steve Bryan and Southampton MP John Denham.
Okay, pleased. I mean, the budget confirmed we've got more people in work than ever before in our country. Living standards are rising. That's fantastic news for all people in my constituency, but certainly for young people.
It doesn't work for me, and it won't work for the millions of people in southern England who are going to say, what world is he living in? They're seeing one where the deficit hasn't been got rid of like he promised. He promised to protect the NHS. He clearly hasn't. On average, people's living standards in the south have actually fallen by more than they have across the rest of England.
Laura Harding, Winchester News Online, Westminster.
Laura Harding there. Every Chancellor has to keep a keen eye on how his budget goes down with leaders of the UK's internationally important financial sector. Our reporter Sarah Hymers has been following the developments at Canary Wharf. So, how are people reacting to this budget announcement, Sarah?
Here at the heart of the British economy, there's been mixed reactions to George Osborne's budget. Earlier today, we gathered opinions on the latest announcement.
Well, unfortunately, we have a house price bubble in Britain at the moment, and being propped up by the government any opportunity they can get, presumably because it creates a feel-good factor. Unfortunately, this is stopping lots of people from getting onto the housing ladder and is doing nothing to improve supply. And unfortunately, I think the Help to Buy ice will only drive up prices further.
I think everyone's trying. I think the government is trying their best.
I think I would say that the deficit that they're trying to achieve, I think it can be reasonable, but I think at the same time some of the things that they've highlighted, especially the policies on immigration that those has, and also the trade with the EU, I think that can be a bit more, I think, underlined.
The budget news can be a deciding factor for people in the general election. The clock is ticking towards the 7th of May, coming in only 50 days. Back to you, Sophie.
Thanks, Sarah. The budget is not just about how much we are paying, it's also about the state of the economy as a whole. Our economic editor, Toby Cruz, has this.
The budget is targeting a number of areas, focusing on different members of society in different ways. A major talking point was fuel. Energy and petrol prices have decreased recently, and because of this, the rate of inflation has dropped as well. This is the lowest we've seen inflation in over 5 years, and as expected, the government are going to continue to freeze petrol duty. Unemployment has fallen since 2012, from nearly 8.5% to 5.7%, while locally Winchester has seen a decrease to less than 1%. With 1.9 million jobs created in the last 5 years, it is reportedly the highest rate of employment in British history. Families since 2010 are said to be £900 better off, and the Conservatives are looking to increase the tax-free allowance to £10,600 for next year. Should they get elected, they plan on raising the tax-free band further to £12,000. Now, since 2013, house prices have seen a return to the sort of average figures we were seeing before the crash in 2008, with average prices reaching £170,000 and over for the first time since the recession. Having already announced plans to abolish pension annuities, there were concerns that the youth weren't going to get much attention, but with the Help to Buy scheme for first-time buyers and plans to raise minimum wage to £8, the scales may have been evened. But is it enough to get a youth vote? Toby Cruz, Winchester News Online.
Well, that's the big political picture, but most people will be thinking tonight of how the budget affects their daily lives. First up, our reporter Rebecca Herbert looks at the freeze on fuel prices.
Petrol is a daily necessity for most of us. For some, the price has always been a concern.
As a non-smoker and someone that doesn't drink that much, things like that don't really affect me, but the amount I use my car with work, 3 kids, second car in the family, fuel prices is something that really does mean a lot to us.
Petrol prices have decreased over the last couple of years due to cheap oil and is more expensive than many other countries in the EU. With tax remaining the same, this is the longest duty freeze in 21 years. Rebecca Herbert, Winchester News Online.
At a first glance, George Osborne's budget doesn't seem to have any economic policies directly targeted at women. But all political parties know that female votes may well hold the key to winning the next election. Campaign groups like Family and Childcare Trust say the government needs to offer more financial help to enable mothers to get back to work. Childcare now costs over £6,000 a year. Parents are now using over a quarter of their salary to pay for childcare, and many women would like to see more done in the budget to help.
We've seen big cuts under this government, for example, to local government, who bear the budgets for things like childcare and social care. And when there isn't that support, that investment, then it falls to women to take on that responsibility.
Last Friday here in Hampshire, family support charity Home Start had their annual conference, which covered topics such as early years help, women's mental health and children's services.
If you can support families and children at an early enough stage, from birth right through to preschool, then actually the difference that you can make for long-term outcomes is just profound.
Groups like Home Start and millions of women across the UK will be waiting to hear what the budget will hold for them. Alice Wheatley, Winchester News Online.
Food. We all need it, but how much are we really paying? With prices falling since the end of the recession, I went on my own supermarket sweep to see how costs of the essentials compared to a few years ago. According to The Telegraph in 2012, my shop would have cost a whopping £5.90, but today my costs were down by 23%, coming to just over £4.50. Declining food costs are a result of low inflation. With a high of almost 6% in 2011, inflation has now dropped to 0.3%. The price of basic food items is an important part of day-to-day life for some Winchester residents.
It would be good if it was covered in the budget. I think the price of food is very relevant to everybody at the moment, so it would be quite interesting for everybody to hear more about.
Yeah, it could be brought up. Obviously some places are more expensive than others for sort of the same product, so it's just about shopping around to find the best bargain for different shops.
With people still on the hunt for a bargain and crying out for cheaper food prices, we will have to see if Mr Osborne's budget will cut the mustard. Annabelle Nelson, Winchester News Online.
The dust is just starting to settle on the political reaction to the budget. Earlier today, a group of Winchester locals joined us to watch the budget live.
Banks got support going into the crisis. Now they must support the whole.
It does sound all very encouraging, but there's obviously quite a lot of it's a very positive spin. So it's trying to see obviously that the facts behind the rhetoric, I guess. If we want to get re-elected again, they've got to say how great things are. So I think it's very saying that we've made up for the mistakes of the previous government, and now things are on the forward, heading in the right direction. Obviously, 5 years on, you would hope things would be pushing in the right direction. So I can see why he wants this to kind of basically this budget to help win votes, and the comments in terms of more money to military charities, which is great. That's a bit of a vote winner, isn't it? Doing that. So if I was going to say, I was like, yeah, that sounds great, but that's and it will be brilliant for those charities, but. That's not the sort of thing I think he said in previous speech. So I think he's looking to win votes. I think it'd be great if they could get cross-party support on certain key issues. I think
there has been comment on the minimum wage. I think we've talked about that coming out today, and it's sort of like it's still not a living wage, and they're talking about jobs, the number of jobs, and 80% of these jobs are professional or skilled, and the number but so many jobs are low paid, part-time. And it really impacts on people in the local area. They're sort of claiming that we've got this amazing growth now and everyone's really happy and we're quite affluent. and people in real terms have got more money in their pocket. Well, I don't see that on a grassroots level. So in real terms, people over the last 5 years are feeling poorer. Food is more expensive, fuel is more expensive, wages haven't risen. I mean, I'm a professional. I've had poor pay rises the last few years. I know many people that have not had any. In real terms, people aren't feeling richer in the way that they seem to suggest that we are. But it's classic because obviously in this time of year they want to spin it, everyone's feeling great, so they'll all vote Tory and we'll step into the next election. I would like to hear what they're going to do to the income tax threshold. We need to take more people out of income tax.
Boasting that we stand for opportunity for all, George Osborne stated that youth unemployment, child poverty, inequality and pensioner poverty are down, and the funding for mental health care and funding for university students from disadvantaged backgrounds is up. Alongside this, high street prices are continuing to fall. The Chancellor was in a bullish mood, but the opposition hit back almost at once. Labour leader Ed Miliband told Parliament that it's a budget people won't believe and that it will always leave people worse off. In response to the bold tax claims made by Osborne, Miliband states that the Conservatives give with one hand and take far more with another. Lib Dem Treasury Chief Secretary Danny Alexander said the Tories of late have tried to copy our policy on income tax. It was the first item on the Liberal Democrat manifesto at the last election. He went on to thank the Conservatives for voting through an essentially Liberal Democrat campaign. So, with just 50 days to go, George Osborne needed to make maximum impact in order to win over voters. Laura Harding took a look at what all of the other parties have been doing so far.
The South has been a battleground of swing seats for the main 5 parties so far through this election. David Cameron kicked off the political frenzy in Eastleigh back in January and was followed by members of other parties in a continuous succession of photo ops and visits.
I want to talk about tax. And why this is so important is after the security of a job, the next best thing we can do is to cut people's taxes and let them keep more of their own money to spend as they choose.
David Cameron's going to spend the whole actual election campaign running scared of a debate with Ed Miliband. The broadcasters want it, Ed Miliband wants it, the public wants it. And why is he running scared? He's scared because he can't defend his record and he can't defend what he wants to do to Britain.
The big Conservative target is Eastleigh, as on a near weekly basis a new minister was visiting and WINOL was there to cover it all.
Getting the economy to a place where it was heading off a cliff to now one of the strongest and fastest growing economies in the developed world. And the reason we're here is because businesses like Arlington have absolutely benefited from that, from the business confidence, from the help that's been given to small businesses in terms of tax relief, and actually just the very enthusiastic economic climate that we have at the moment.
UKIP, as the main opposition in Eastleigh, were hot on the Conservatives' heels to make a big impression by opening up their new shop.
We don't blame the people coming in from other parts of the world. Of course we don't. It's not their fault. Poor people want a decent lifestyle. It's nothing personal. And we welcome immigrants, but we've got to have that points-based system. If we can't control our numbers, we will have nothing in this area apart from high-rise and no green fields apart from on the TV screen.
According to the polls, the Liberal Democrats are still suffering in this traditionally Conservative region, having gone back on many pledges when they joined the coalition.
What has UKIP done? All they've done is gone around and pretend that somehow every problem in Eastleigh can be solved by blaming it on foreigners. People know that's not the case. We won this by-election despite all the predictions to the contrary, and I think we will win again, but we're not complacent.
The fact that we've gone into coalition with the Conservatives, I would say in the national interest to get the country through a very difficult period. It doesn't make us Conservatives. We have very strong values.
The Green Party have a low presence in the South, so have focused more on a national establishing launch. Caroline Lucas is eager to keep her Brighton Pavilion seat away from Labour, and WINOL will be on location to cover the result of Brighton Pavilion as well as Brighton, Kempton and Hove. Laura Harding, Winchester News Online.
And now over to Rachel Gunter with the sports.
Thanks. Now, football may be the world's most popular sport, but students at Queen Mary's College in Basingstoke took their love of football even further by playing a gruelling 24-hour match, all in aid of comic relief. Ross Perkins has all the details.
Football is a tough sport to play, but to do it for 24 hours? Now that is a challenge. The students at Queen Mary's College in Basingstoke took up the challenge in aid of comic relief, and finishing on Saturday morning, raised over £950, with money still being collected. Although it was for charity, it was still as competitive from the first hour to the last, as I found out to my painful cost. Even some of the players couldn't quite believe it. The event was entering its third year in a row, and a week before the match, I caught up with Dan Greenwood of the Hampshire FA, who helps the students at the college organise the event.
If I could sum it up in one word, it'd probably be camaraderie. The buzz on the day is fantastic. It's a real feel-good vibe. It's a group of students helping each other, stepping in and making sure that when they look back at the end of the college year that they can really say and put on their CV that they've contributed to a project of this size. And it's great to see people who've been playing for 8 hours straight pick up a bib and jump straight back on the pitch.
As the final whistle blew on the 24-hour event, relief that there was no more added time. Ross Perkins, Winchester News Online, Basingstoke.
And Winchester Knights Basketball Club are celebrating being crowned champions of the Western 3A division. After last speaking to WINOL a few weeks ago, the university team won their final 2 games, securing the title with 7 wins out of 8 league games. Afzal Zumra once again spoke to their jubilant captain.
Winchester Knights basketball team has finally secured promotion from the Western 3A division. In a fiery encounter against the University of West England, the Knights took no prisoners in a 71-58 victory.
Oh, it's the best thing that's happened to us. It's the best day of my university life. Seriously, this means everything to me, and we've done it together as a team. I couldn't be happier. This is the best feeling I've had since I've come to this university. By a long distance, this is the best thing to happen to Winchester basketball, and it's only going to keep improving. We got our eyes on the next division, and we want to make this university proud of us.
The champions aren't resting on their laurels, as their focus is already moving on to next season.
The future looks good. We've got a lot of hard work to put into, but looking forward to next season, we want to get promoted again. So it's going to be a lot of hard work, struggles, but hopefully success for this university.
The Knights will be hoping for even more success moving up into the Western 2A division next season, which commences next year in January. Afzal Zumra, Winchester News Online, Winchester.
And that's all from sport. Back to the studio.
And finally, after unexpected delays yesterday, Winchester Cathedral has had its 27-ton scaffolding lifted onto its roof. Victoria Barclay has the story.
As part of a multi-million-pound restoration project, 27 tonnes of metal structuring has been lifted onto Winchester Cathedral's presbytery high roof due to the current one being torn. The 200-ton crane caused delay yesterday due to not enough counterweights being ordered, but work resumed early this morning.
You know, it's a milestone moment, really. You know, it's a big thing having a 20.5 million project, and a huge amount of work goes into getting it all underway. You know,
£3 million is still needed in order to complete the project, but for now the skeleton has made it safely on top. This is a first for this kind of project, but the budget has revealed a £40 million fund to restore church and cathedral roofs, so we can expect much more of this kind from now on. Victoria Barclay, Winchester News Online, Winchester.
For more award-winning news, sport and features, make sure to head over to winol.co.uk. Goodbye.